The red warning lights flashed across the command center of the Galactic Council station. Ambassador Kethra's tentacles twisted nervously as she read the intelligence reports flowing in from the outer rim sectors. Each message brought worse news than the last. 3,000 ships confirmed, reported her aide, a young Zephyrian with silver scales that shimmered under the artificial lights. The Draconian Grand Armada has been gathering at their staging point near the Vega Nebula for 6 standard months. Kethra's main eye stalks focused on the holographic display showing the massive fleet. Each Draconian warship was larger than most space stations. Their dark hulls bristled with weapons capable of cracking planets in half. The sight made her stomach acids churn with fear. "What is their target?" she asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Human space, Ambassador. Our sources inside the Draconian Empire confirmed they plan to move against the Terran colonies within days." Far away, on the human capital world of New Geneva, Admiral Sarah Chun stood before a wall of monitors in the Terran Defense Force headquarters. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her dark eyes studied the tactical displays with calm determination. Around her, junior officers worked frantically to update fleet positions and evacuation plans. "Ma'am," called Lieutenant Morrison from his station. "Long-range sensors confirm the Draconian fleet is moving. They've left the staging area and are heading toward our territory." Chun nodded slowly. She had been expecting this day for months. The Draconians had been expanding their empire steadily for decades, conquering or enslaving every species they encountered. Now it was humanity's turn. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Based on their current speed, they'll reach our outer colonies in 72 hours. Chun looked at the tactical display showing Earth's defensive fleet. 200 ships, most of them decades old. Against 3,000 of the galaxy's most advanced warships, they might as well be throwing rocks at a hurricane. "Begin evacuation of the outer settlements," she ordered. "Priority to families with children and essential personnel. Military installations are to be prepared for demolition if necessary." "Yes, yes, ma'am," Morrison replied, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. Meanwhile, aboard the massive Draconian flagship World Breaker, Supreme War Leader Vorthak addressed his fleet commanders. The reptilian giant stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scales dark green with battle scars marking his arms and chest. His yellow eyes glowed with anticipation as he spoke. "Fellow warriors," his deep voice rumbled through the communication system. "For too long, the humans have occupied systems that rightfully belong to superior species. They spread like a disease across the galaxy, polluting space with their weakness and primitive ways." The assembled commanders hissed their agreement. Around the fleet, thousands of Draconian soldiers prepared their weapons and checked their armor. They had conquered 47 different species. The humans would be no different. "These creatures call themselves civilized," Vorthak continued, "but they are nothing more than clever animals. Their ships are slow and weak. Their weapons are outdated. They will fall before our might like grain before the harvest blade." On the bridge of the World Breaker, the navigation officer announced their approach to human territory. Vorthak smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Begin the attack," he commanded. "Show no mercy. The humans will serve us as slaves, or they will die. There is no third option." Back on New Geneva, Admiral Chun received the final diplomatic reports. The emergency peace envoys sent to negotiate with the Draconians had been turned away without discussion. The alien empire's response was simple and brutal. Submit completely or be destroyed. Any word from the other council species? Chun asked her communications officer. The Zephyrians expressed their sympathy, but cannot provide military assistance. The Kethri offered to help with refugee resettlement after the war. The Crystalline Collective suggests we surrender to minimize casualties. Chun felt a bitter smile cross her lips. Humanity had always been alone in the galaxy. They were the newcomers, the primitives, the species that other civilizations tolerated but never truly accepted. Now, when facing extinction, they would stand alone. "Ma'am," called the sensor operator. "We're receiving a priority message from Captain Webb at the Kepler 442 outpost." Chen's expression grew serious. Kepler 442 was their furthest agricultural colony, a peaceful world of farms and research stations. If the Draconians were attacking there first, it meant they planned to cut off Earth's food supplies. "Put him through," she ordered. The main screen flickered to show Captain Marcus Webb's weathered face. Behind him, Chun could see the cramped bridge of his destroyer, the Resilience. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across the walls. "Admiral," Webb said calmly, "long-range sensors show the Draconian fleet approaching our position. 3,000 ships, just as intelligence predicted. They'll be here within the hour." "Marcus," Chun said softly, "you know your orders. Get your people out of there." Webb shook his head. "With respect, ma'am, we've talked about this. The evacuation ships won't reach Kepler 442 in time. Someone needs to make first contact according to proper protocols." Chun felt her heart sink. Marcus Webb had been her friend for 20 years. They had served together during the border wars, fought pirates in the asteroid belt, and helped establish humanity's first colonies. Now she was about to watch him die. "The fleet will follow standard procedures," Webb continued. "All ships know their roles. When the time comes, we'll execute the plan." "Understood, Captain," Chun replied, her voice steady despite the pain in her chest. "May fortune favor you, and may wisdom guide us all," Webb answered, using the old Terran Defense Force motto. The transmission ended, leaving Chun staring at the blank screen. Around the command center, her officers worked quietly, processing evacuation reports and fleet movements. They all knew what was coming. In less than 3 days, the most powerful military force in the galaxy would reach Earth. Humanity's brief time among the stars was about to end. Chun closed her eyes and whispered a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. Then she opened them again and began preparing for the impossible fight ahead. The Draconian Grand Armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, like a dark storm cloud blotting out the stars. 3,000 massive warships spread across space in perfect formation, their weapons already charged and ready for battle. The agricultural world ahead looked peaceful and defenseless, just as Supreme War Leader Vortheg had expected. "Scan the system," he ordered from his command throne aboard the Worldbreaker. "Show me what these primitive humans think will protect them." The tactical officer worked quickly over his console. "War Leader, sensors detect minimal defensive presence. 1 patrol squadron of 5 ships, old destroyer-class vessels. They appear to be moving to intercept us." Vorthak laughed, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the bridge. 5 ships against 3,000? The humans truly are as foolish as our intelligence suggested. On the bridge of the human destroyer Resilience, Captain Marcus Webb watched the enemy fleet appear on his screens. The sight should have terrified him, but instead he felt strangely calm. His crew of 30 men and women worked at their stations with steady professionalism, following procedures they had drilled countless times. "Distance to enemy fleet?" Webb asked. 2 million kilometers in closing, reported his navigation officer, Ensign Torres. "They're maintaining formation speed, not rushing to engage." "Communications, open all frequencies," Webb ordered, broadcasting on standard first contact protocols. Lieutenant Hayes activated the communication system. Webb picked up the microphone and spoke in clear, measured tones. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Marcus Webb of the Terran Defense Force destroyer Resilience. You have entered sovereign human space. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came quickly. On the main screen appeared the massive form of Supreme War Leader Vorthak, his yellow eyes glowing with amusement. Behind him, Webb could see the impressive bridge of the alien flagship with its dozens of crew stations. "I am Supreme War Leader Vorthak of the Draconian Empire," the alien leader announced. "We have come to claim these systems for our people. Your species will submit to our rule or face extinction. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally." Webb nodded politely. "I understand your position, War Leader. However, I must inform you that these systems are under the protection of the Terran Defense Force and the Galactic Council Accords. I respectfully request that you withdraw your fleet and contact proper diplomatic channels to resolve any territorial disputes." Vorthak's expression shifted to one of irritated disbelief. "You dare refuse us? Your 5 tiny ships against my armada? Perhaps a demonstration will help you understand reality." The war leader gestured to his weapons officer. A focused energy beam lanced out from one of the Draconian battleships, striking 2 of Webb's escort vessels. The human ships exploded instantly, their hulls torn apart by the devastating alien weapons. Debris scattered across space, glowing briefly before fading into darkness. "Now," Vorthak continued, "perhaps you will see reason. Surrender, and your deaths will be quick." Webb studied the tactical display showing the destruction of the Harmony and the Defiant, along with 60 good people he had known personally. His jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm when he responded. "Hostile action detected against Terran Defense Force vessels," he announced formally. "This constitutes an act of war against humanity. All human vessels, execute Maneuver 77 Alpha immediately." Vorthak frowned. He had expected the remaining human ships to either flee in terror or surrender. Instead, something very different happened. The 3 surviving human destroyers suddenly scattered in seemingly random directions. The Resilience dove toward the inner system, broadcasting rapid coded messages on multiple frequencies. The Courage jumped to hyperspace coordinates that made no tactical sense. The Victory headed straight for an asteroid field, transmitting what sounded like mathematical equations. "What are they doing?" Vorthak demanded of his tactical officer. "Unknown War Leader. Their movements appear random. The signals they're broadcasting, our computers cannot decode them, but they're definitely coordinated." Across human space, every colony world and starship received Captain Webb's transmission. On New Geneva, Admiral Chun stood in the command center watching the tactical displays. "Confirm receipt of 77 Alpha," she announced. "All stations, begin Protocol 7 implementation." The response was immediate. On 47 different worlds, hundreds of millions of humans stopped what they were doing and focused their thoughts on a single, simple concept. Factory workers, farmers, scientists, teachers, children in schools, elderly people in their homes, all of them thinking the same thought at exactly the same time. In the Kepler 442 system, Vorthak was growing frustrated. "Advance the fleet," he ordered. "We will sweep these insects aside and proceed to their core worlds." The Draconian Armada began moving forward in perfect formation. Their destination was clear: the industrial system of Tau Ceti, where intelligence indicated the humans maintained their largest shipyards. From there, they would strike directly at Earth itself. "Jump coordinates calculated, War Leader," reported the navigation officer. "Fleet ready for hyperspace transition." "Execute jump," Vorthak commanded. The massive alien fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind only the scattered debris of the destroyed human vessels. But in the silence of space, Captain Webb's final transmission continued broadcasting on all frequencies. "The maze is now in play," his voice echoed through the cosmos. "All citizens, Prepare for Protocol 7. On Earth, a young astrophysicist named Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in her laboratory, her eyes closed in concentration. Around the world, her colleagues were doing the same thing. In space stations, on colony worlds, aboard merchant ships and research vessels, every human being focused their thoughts on the same impossible task. They thought about space itself, about the quantum fields that connected all matter across the universe. They thought about the ancient human dream of making the universe itself their ally. And in the depths of space, reality began to respond. The Draconian fleet jumped toward Tau Ceti, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had crushed 47 different species, conquered hundreds of worlds, built an empire that spanned a quarter of the galaxy. What could one primitive species possibly do against such power? They were about to find out. As the alien warships traveled through hyperspace, subtle changes began occurring around them. Navigation readings flickered. Sensor data became unreliable. Communications between ships started developing strange echoes and delays. The crew attributed these minor anomalies to interference from local stellar phenomena. Supreme War Leader Vorthak stood on his bridge, planning the destruction of the human homeworld. He would make their defeat quick and absolute, a lesson to other species who might dare resist draconian rule. The humans had shown surprising courage, he admitted. But courage without power was meaningless. He had no way of knowing that across human space, millions of minds were working together to transform his certainty into something else entirely. The universe was vast and full of mysteries that even the mighty Draconian Empire had never imagined, and humanity was about to introduce them to the most fundamental mystery of all: the power of consciousness itself to reshape reality. The Draconian Grand Armada emerged from hyperspace, expecting to find the industrial worlds of the Tau Ceti system spread before them like ripe fruit ready for harvest. Instead, Supreme War Leader Vorthak found himself staring at something that made no sense. "Navigation officer," he growled, his yellow eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Confirm our position." The young Draconian at the navigation station worked frantically over his instruments, his scales pale with confusion. "War Leader, our coordinates indicate we should be at Tau Ceti, but the star configuration is wrong. The planets are not where they should be." Vorthak's claws scraped against the armrest of his command throne. Around the bridge, his officers exchanged worried glances. In 300 years of conquest, they had never encountered navigation problems like this. "Perhaps local interference," suggested the tactical officer. "These human systems may have unusual gravitational fields." "Run a full sensor sweep," Vorthak commanded, "and contact the fleet. I want position reports from all ship commanders." As the communications officer began transmitting orders, the responses that came back only deepened the mystery. Ship after ship reported the same problem. They had emerged from hyperspace in locations that did not match their intended coordinates. Some found themselves dangerously close to stellar masses. Others discovered they were scattered across empty space with no recognizable landmarks. "War Leader," called the sensor operator, "I'm detecting human vessels on the edge of our scanning range." Vorthak leaned forward. "How many ships? What class?" "Difficult to determine, sir. The readings keep changing. Sometimes I show one vessel, sometimes 3, sometimes none at all. It's as if they're appearing and disappearing." "Impossible," Vorthak snarled. "No technology in the galaxy can hide ships that effectively." But as the hours passed, the impossible became undeniable. Draconian vessels pursuing the phantom human contacts found themselves alone in empty space, with no sign of their targets. Worse, many of these pursuit ships lost contact with the main fleet entirely, vanishing into the void without sending distress signals. Commander Threshka of the battleship Iron Talon was the first to report truly disturbing phenomena. A ship had been chasing what sensors indicated was a small human courier vessel when reality began to behave strangely. "War leader," she transmitted from her bridge. "The human ship we were pursuing just passed through a solid asteroid. Our weapons locked onto it, but when we fired, the energy beams curved away as if space itself was bending around the target." Vorthak listened to the report with growing unease. "Commander, check your sensor calibration. Run full diagnostics." "Already completed, sir. All systems are functioning normally. But I'm seeing things that violate known physics. Stars that flicker in patterns, gravity fields that respond to radio transmissions, space that folds back on itself." Across the scattered Draconian fleet, similar reports flooded in. Navigation had become unreliable. Ships that entered hyperspace emerged in random locations. Some vessels reported seeing the same star system from multiple angles simultaneously. Others found their instruments reading time moving backward. Dr. Zethmar, the fleet's chief scientist, was summoned to the Worldbreaker's bridge to explain what was happening. The elderly Draconian examined the sensor data with growing alarm. "War leader," he said finally, "I believe we are experiencing localized distortions in spacetime itself. The quantum fields that maintain the structure of reality are being manipulated somehow." "By the humans?" Vorthak demanded. "These primitives barely understand interstellar travel. How could they affect the fundamental forces of the universe?" "I do not know," Dr. Zethmar admitted. "Our understanding of their technology appears to be incomplete." The war leader's frustration boiled over. "Find me answers. I will not be defeated by cosmic coincidence and sensor ghosts." But the universe seemed determined to prove him wrong. The Draconian fleet continued to fracture as individual ships became lost in the maze of distorted space. Some captains attempted to use emergency beacons to reunite with the main force, only to discover that their signals were being reflected and amplified in impossible ways. Captain Gorthan of the cruiser Claw of Dominion had always prided himself on his logical mind and steady nerves. But after 3 days of chasing phantom contacts through twisted space, even he began to question his sanity. His ship had been pursuing what appeared to be a tiny human courier vessel when they finally managed to corner it near a small asteroid field. The human ship seemed to give up, allowing itself to be caught in a tractor beam and brought aboard. "Finally," Gorthan muttered as his marines escorted the captured humans to the interrogation chamber. "Perhaps now we will get some answers." The human crew consisted of only 3 people. An elderly man who appeared to be the captain, a young woman with the insignia of a scientist, and a middle-aged engineer. They showed no signs of fear as they were brought before the Draconian captain. "I am Dr. Elena Vasquez," the woman announced calmly. "Astrophysicist, Terran Research Institute. I assume you have questions." Gorthan studied the small human female with puzzlement. She should have been terrified. Instead, she seemed almost amused. "Yes," he growled. "I have questions. What technology are you using to manipulate spacetime? How are your ships appearing and disappearing? Why can we not navigate properly in your territory?" Dr. Vasquez smiled. "You've been studying our technology all wrong," she said. "You assume we control the universe through force, like your people do. But that's not how humans work. We don't conquer the universe, Captain. We make friends with it." "Nonsense," Gorthan snapped. "The laws of physics cannot be befriended, can't they?" Dr. Vasquez asked. "Tell me, Captain, what happens when billions of conscious minds focus on the same thought at the same time? When every human being in 47 star systems concentrates on the same simple concept?" Before Gorthan could respond, his bridge officer's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. "Captain, we're receiving multiple distress calls from the fleet. Ships are reporting impossible readings. Dorthan activated his personal communicator. Explain. Sir, the world breaker just vanished from our sensors. One moment it was there. The next, it simply stopped existing. No explosion. No energy signature. Nothing. It's as if the flagship never existed at all. The Draconian captain felt cold fear crawl up his spine. Dr. Vasquez continued smiling. Every human in space is thinking the same thought, right? Now, she explained conversationally. A very simple thought, really. We're all thinking, make them lost. And the universe, it turns out, is very good at listening to requests like that. That night, as Gorthan struggled to sleep in his quarters, he was awakened by emergency alarms. Racing to the bridge, he found his crew in a state of panic. Sir, reported his navigation officer, we can't locate any other ships in the fleet. Our position readings make no sense. And the stars. The stars are moving. Gortham looked at the main screen and felt his sanity slip. The familiar constellation patterns that had guided Draconian navigation for centuries were slowly rotating, changing, forming new patterns that spelled out words in human script. What did they say? He whispered. His communications officer, who had studied human languages, translated with a shaking voice. You are lost. You are alone. You should not have come here. As if summoned by those words, Dr. Vasquez's face appeared on every screen throughout the ship. She was still smiling, that same calm, knowing smile. Don't worry, Captain, she said softly. We're not cruel. We'll find you eventually. But first, you need to understand what you tried to destroy. You need to learn what it means to be lost in the dark between the stars, with only hope to guide you home. The transmission ended, leaving the claw of Dominion drifting alone in space that no longer followed the rules any thinking being could understand. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the Great Crystal Chamber on Nexus Prime, with representatives from 43 species gathering to discuss what many were calling the greatest mystery in recorded galactic history. Ambassador Kethra floated in her suspension tank, her tentacles twisted with anxiety as she watched the holographic reports streaming in from human space. 3,000 ships, she announced to the assembled delegates. The entire Draconian Grand Armada has vanished without a trace. No energy signatures, no debris fields, no distress signals. They simply ceased to exist. The HFY delegate, a tall crystalline being named Scholar Velthok, rose from his seat. With respect, Ambassador, cease to exist may not be accurate. Our long-range sensors detect quantum disturbances in human space, suggesting the missing vessels may have been displaced rather than destroyed. Displaced where? Demanded the Kretar representative, her insectoid features sharp with concern. And more importantly, how? The humans barely possess interstellar flight capability. Ambassador Kethra activated the central hologram, displaying the official request from the Council's Investigation Division. That is what we intend to discover. I am pleased to announce that the humans have agreed to full cooperation with our investigation team. Scholar Velthok stepped forward. The HFY Analytical Corps volunteers to lead this investigation. Our species has studied consciousness and quantum mechanics for millennia. If there is a scientific explanation for these events, we will find it. 3 days later, the investigation team arrived in human space aboard the research vessel Clarity of Thought. Scholar Velthok was accompanied by a team of the galaxy's finest scientists and investigators, representing 12 different species. They expected to find humans hiding something, perhaps covering up some secret weapon they had used against the Draconians. Instead, they were met with complete openness. Admiral Sarah Chun personally greeted the investigation team at New Geneva's primary space station. Her manner was professional but relaxed, showing none of the defensiveness the investigators had expected. Welcome to human space, she said warmly. "I understand you have questions about the recent events. We're prepared to provide complete access to our military records, communication logs, and any other information you require." Scholar Velthok's crystalline form shifted colors slightly, indicating surprise. "You are not concerned about revealing military secrets to potential enemies?" Chun smiled. "Scholar, we have no military secrets that would help anyone threaten us. Our defense doesn't rely on hiding information." The investigation began immediately. Velthok's team examined every piece of data related to the Draconian incursion. They studied sensor logs, communication intercepts, tactical reports, and even personal journals from human military personnel. What they found confused them more than it helped. There was no evidence of any secret weapon, no advanced technology beyond what the humans had openly displayed, no hidden fleets or mysterious energy sources. The human military appeared to be exactly what it claimed to be, a small, outgunned force with outdated equipment. "Perhaps the answer lies with the civilian population," suggested Dr. Nexara, a Colonian psychologist on the investigation team. "We should interview human civilians to understand their role in these events." The interviews were even more puzzling. Farmers, teachers, factory workers, and shop owners all gave the same basic story. When Captain Webb had transmitted the emergency code, they had all focused their thoughts on a single concept: protecting their homes and families from the invaders. "It was like a meditation," explained Maria Santos, a baker from the agricultural world of Kepler 442. "We all knew what to think about. Make the bad ships lost so they couldn't hurt our children. But how did you coordinate billions of people across dozens of star systems?" Dr. Nexara asked. "The logistics alone should be impossible." Maria looked puzzled by the question. "We didn't need to coordinate anything. When humans are in danger, we all think together naturally. It's just what we do." The breakthrough came when the investigators discovered Dr. Elena Vasquez's research files. The captured astrophysicist had been rescued from the Draconian ship Claw of Dominion, along with her two companions, in a daring operation that had somehow plucked them from the displaced alien vessel. Dr. Vasquez was eager to explain her work. The discovery happened almost by accident, she told Scholar Velthok in her laboratory on New Geneva. Around them, complex equations covered every wall, describing mathematical relationships that made the Jefti scientist's consciousness flutter with excitement. "I was studying quantum entanglement between conscious observers," Dr. Vasquez continued. "Most species develop individual consciousness that operates independently, but humans evolved something different. Our minds naturally synchronize when we face common threats." She activated a holographic display showing brain-wave patterns from millions of humans during the Draconian attack. The waves were identical across vast distances, synchronized to a precision that should have been impossible. "When every human being thinks the same thought at the same time," Dr. Vasquez explained, "our collective consciousness creates resonance patterns in the quantum field that underlies reality itself. Essentially, we can make the universe agree with our thoughts." Scholar Velthok's crystalline body flickered through several colors as he processed this information. "You're describing conscious manipulation of fundamental forces. The energy requirements alone should be astronomical." "That's what I thought too," Dr. Vasquez said with a laugh. "But consciousness doesn't require energy the way physical force does. When billions of minds focus on the same quantum state, reality simply adjusts to match that state. The universe wants to be consistent, so it finds ways to make our thoughts true." The investigation team spent weeks studying Dr. Vasquez's data and conducting their own experiments. They confirmed that humans possessed an unprecedented ability to synchronize their consciousness across interstellar distances. More remarkably, This synchronization could influence quantum fields in measurable ways. The Draconian ships weren't destroyed, Scholar Volthok announced to his team. They were displaced into parallel quantum states. They exist, but in dimensions that don't normally interact with our reality. Dr. Nexora looked up from her psychological analysis reports. The humans actually tried to minimize casualties. They could have thought the Draconian fleet out of existence entirely, but instead, they chose displacement. Even in war, they showed mercy. The final piece of the puzzle came when Admiral Chun explained humanity's communication network. What other species saw as simple data transmission, humans used as a consciousness coordination system. Every human settlement, every ship, every outpost is connected through our quantum communication grid, Chun explained. But we don't just use it for messages. When we need to think together, the network helps synchronize our mental patterns across any distance. So, when Captain Webb initiated Protocol 7, Scholar Volthok began. Every human in space began. Thinking the same thought, Chun finished. Make them lost. Don't let them hurt our families. The universe listened, and space itself became our ally. The implications staggered the investigation team. Humanity hadn't won through superior technology or military strategy. They had weaponized the fundamental force of consciousness itself, turning reality into their defensive system. But why didn't you tell us about this capability? Dr. Nexara asked. The Galactic Council could have negotiated with the Draconians, warned them of the consequences. Admiral Chun's expression grew sad. We did try to warn them. Captain Webb followed first contact protocols perfectly, gave them every chance to withdraw peacefully. But they chose violence instead. When someone threatens our children, our farms, our libraries, our way of life, well, the universe tends to agree that such threats shouldn't exist. Scholar Volthok's investigation report would later become required reading at every major university in the galaxy. His conclusion was simple but profound. Humanity represents the first known case of species-wide quantum consciousness. They have achieved perfect unity of thought without losing individual identity. In doing so, they have gained the ability to influence reality itself through collective will. The report ended with a warning that echoed across the galaxy. Any species considering hostile action against humanity should understand that they would not merely be fighting ships and soldiers. They would be fighting the combined conscious will of an entire species, backed by the fundamental forces of the universe itself. The news of humanity's true capabilities spread across the galaxy faster than any hyperspace transmission. Within weeks of Scholar Volthok's report becoming public, the political landscape of known space began shifting in ways no one had anticipated. In the Zephyrian Trade Federation's capital city, emergency sessions ran day and night as ministers scrambled to rewrite their policies toward humans. Ambassador Silthara paced nervously before the High Council, her silver scales reflecting the harsh meeting room lights. The humans have been requesting standard trade agreements for decades, she announced to the assembled leaders. We treated them as minor partners, suitable only for basic resource exchanges. Now we discover they possess the most powerful defensive capability in galactic history. High Counselor Zephron leaned forward in his crystal chair. What do they want from us now? The same thing they always wanted, Silthara replied with embarrassment. Fair trade rates, cultural exchange programs, and mutual defense treaties. They haven't changed their demands at all. Meanwhile, in the distant Draconian Empire, chaos ruled. Without their Grand Armada, the military hierarchy that had held their civilization together for centuries began collapsing. Slave species that had been crushed under Draconian rule for generations suddenly saw hope. On the industrial world of Corvash Prime, the reptilian overseer Nethful watched in disbelief as his workers simply stopped following orders. The human broadcasts, somehow penetrating even their tightly controlled communication networks, had told a story that changed everything. The mighty Draconian fleet is gone, the workers whispered among themselves. If the conquerors can be defeated, perhaps freedom is possible after all. But humanity's response to their victory surprised even their closest observers. Rather than pressing their advantage or demanding tribute from defeated enemies, the humans immediately began organizing rescue missions. Captain Webb, now promoted to admiral after surviving his impossible mission, led the first expedition into the quantum displacement zones where the Draconian ships had vanished. His flagship, the new destroyer Harmony's Hope, carried specially designed equipment based on Dr. Vasquez's research. Remember, Webb addressed his crew as they approached the distortion field. These people came to destroy us, but they're still people. We bring them home because that's what humans do. The rescue operations proved incredibly difficult. The displaced Draconian ships existed in quantum states that barely touched normal reality. Finding them required the same coordinated consciousness techniques that had caused their displacement, but in reverse. Millions of humans across space focused their thoughts on a new concept, bringing the lost ones home. The first ship they retrieved was the cruiser Claw of Dominion, with Captain Gorthon and his crew. When the Draconian vessel materialized back in normal space, its crew was found in a state of psychological shock. They spoke of experiencing the spaces between thoughts and dreams that had weight and substance. Captain Gorthon, once proud and arrogant, met Admiral Webb with tears in his yellow eyes. "We came to enslave you," he said quietly. "Why do you save us?" Webb helped the alien captain to his feet. "Because leaving someone lost in the dark isn't who we are. Even if they started as enemies." But not all the rescues went smoothly. Supreme War Leader Vorthek and the flagship Worldbreaker were among the last vessels recovered, found drifting in a quantum state so deep that reality around them had become fluid and dreamlike. When Vorthak finally stood on solid ground again, he was a changed being. The massive Draconian warrior who had commanded the greatest fleet in galactic history now moved slowly, his eyes holding depths that hadn't been there before. "I saw the truth," he told the human rescue team. "In the spaces between reality, I understood what we had tried to destroy. We sought to conquer those who had already befriended the universe itself." The war leader's public statement, broadcast across Draconian space, stunned his people. "There can be no shame," he declared, "in losing to such power. We faced beings who command reality through unity and love, while we sought dominion through fear and violence. They have shown us what strength truly means." The political repercussions continued for months. The Galactic Council formally recognized humanity as a Tier 1 consciousness species, a classification that had been purely theoretical until now. Trade agreements were hastily rewritten as species that had previously ignored human requests suddenly competed for favorable relationships. The Crystalline Collective, ancient and cautious, sent their first ambassadors to human space in over 1,000 years. The insectoid hive queens of the Kretar Expanse, who rarely acknowledged other species as equals, formally requested defensive alliance treaties. But perhaps the most significant change came within human space itself. The crisis had revealed just how unified humanity could become when necessary, and many began wondering if that unity could be maintained during peacetime for positive purposes. Dr. Elena Vasquez found herself at the center of a new research initiative that dwarfed anything she had previously imagined. Scientists from across the galaxy came to study human consciousness, hoping to understand how an entire species could think as one without losing individual identity. "The implications go far beyond military applications," she explained to a gathering of the galaxy's leading researchers. "If we can teach other species to achieve similar consciousness coordination, we might be able to solve problems that have plagued civilization for millennia. Our laboratory became the center of the Consciousness Research Institute, where humans worked alongside Jefti, Zephyrians, and even reformed Draconians to explore the possibilities of unified thought applied to peaceful purposes. 2 years after the disappearance of the Draconian Armada, a memorial garden was dedicated on Kepler 442, the world where the first contact had occurred. The ceremony was attended by representatives from dozens of species, including a delegation of former Draconian military officers led by ex-war leader Vorthak, Admiral. Webb stood before the memorial stone that bore the names of the crew members who had died in the first exchange of fire. Beside him, Vorthak placed a Draconian mourning crystal among the human flowers. They died believing they were protecting their people, Vorthak said quietly. They could not have known they faced an enemy that would later become their rescuer. Webb nodded. Fear makes enemies of us all. Understanding makes us family. Around them, children from multiple species played together in the garden. Human youngsters ran alongside young Draconians and Zephyrians, their laughter echoing through the memorial space. Some of the children were offspring of mixed marriages between former enemies. Dr. Vasquez, now graying but still energetic, watched the children with satisfaction. This is what we were really protecting, she told Webb. Not territory or resources, but the possibility of this moment. The garden had become more than a memorial. It was a living symbol of what could be achieved when consciousness was directed toward creation rather than destruction. The vegetables grown there fed anyone who was hungry, regardless of species. The research station nearby worked on projects to benefit all galactic civilization. As the ceremony concluded, Webb received a message from Earth. The Terran Defense Force had been restructured. Its mission expanded beyond military protection to include humanitarian rescue operations across the galaxy. Ships that had once prepared for war now carried supplies to disaster zones and scientific equipment to worlds seeking to understand consciousness research. Admiral, reported his aide, we're receiving a request from the Outer Rim, the Dhakta. Mayan colonies are experiencing equipment failures, and they're asking for human assistance. Webb smiled. Prepare the fleet for departure, and send a message to Dr. Vasquez's team. If we're going to help with mining equipment, we might as well bring some consciousness researchers along. Maybe we can teach them to think their problems away. As the sun set over the memorial garden, former war leader Vorthak knelt beside the human children who were tending the plants. One small girl, no more than 7 years old, looked up at the massive Draconian with curiosity rather than fear. Are you one of the people who got lost? She asked innocently. Vorthak's scaled features softened. Yes, little one. I was very lost, but your people found me and brought me home. Good, the child said firmly. Nobody should have to be lost. Even if they were being mean before. The former war leader felt tears in his eyes again, but this time they were tears of gratitude rather than despair. Indeed, he whispered. This is what we were trying to destroy. This wisdom, this compassion. I understand now why the universe chose their side. As night fell across the memorial garden, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the universe itself was smiling down on the small gathering of former enemies who had become family. And somewhere in the quantum depths of space, reality continued to respond to the collective dreams of billions of human minds, all thinking the same simple thought: make the galaxy a place where no one has to be lost alone in the dark.